Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little while longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. By this, everyone will know you are my disciples if you have love for one another." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
So we've heard our readings for today, and these scriptures, well, they leave us with a few problems. Our gospel today takes place in the context of Maundy Thursday. Jesus has just washed the feet of his disciples, and now he's giving them their final teaching. And Jesus gives them this new command to love one another. And then Jesus is crucified and dies. And then he is risen from the grave. He appears to his followers and then eventually ascends into heaven. Jesus commanded us to love one another. And even though Jesus said the Holy Spirit would be with us always to guide us, it's largely been left up to us to figure out how to love one another. And figuring out how to love others can be a problem for us. But it was also a problem for the early church. This morning, we have also heard Acts 11. And in this reading, Peter is reporting to the church in Jerusalem about an experience he had in Acts 10. This story is told twice. Can you think of any other Bible stories that are told twice in the same book of the Bible? I can't. It's unusual for a story to be repeated twice. It's unusual because the materials they used to write down this book of Acts were very, very expensive. The fact that this story is recorded twice, once right after the other, means this story is very important. It might just be the whole point of the book of Acts. The telling of Peter's vision is important. And we have to understand that at the time of the early church, Jewish people would not go into the homes of people who were not Jewish. They would not sit down at a table with them. And Peter changes this custom entirely based on his vision from God. You've heard this morning Peter report his vision. God tells Peter to kill and eat the animals that he sees. What we have to understand is that the dietary laws of Judaism forbid the eating of the animals Peter saw. God is telling Peter that God is changing God's laws. God is changing the laws about what is allowable to eat. And that has other implications, which, to his credit, Peter seems to understand immediately. Because just after Peter has this vision, he's called to go to the home of a Gentile man, Cornelius, who wants to hear the good news and be baptized. Peter realized from his vision that God loved Gentile people too. So Peter opens the gospel to people who are not Jewish. And that's controversial enough. He has to go explain himself to the people in Jerusalem. This is a really big deal. Peter insists that Christ's words that the gospel should be preached to all the people of the world mean just that, all the people of the world. And just as Jesus reached out to the people his society considered ritually impure, his disciples had to learn to reach out and love the people that society ignored. See, I told you this left us with a problem. It's the same problem Peter faced and solved so aptly. Jesus told us to love one another. And Jesus meant all others, even the ones we wouldn't think about first. Peter shared his vision with the church because as church, we may be called to love people who we don't understand. People we might even prefer to avoid. There are many people in the world we don't understand as we should. And then there are those people who we think we understand, who we don't really understand. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And mental health is important to the church because mental health is an issue for so many of God's beloved children. We know we live in a society where there is great need for mental health care. And it's highly likely that at some point, each one of us will meet someone who's either living with or experiencing a mental health crisis. Now, I don't know you all that well, but I don't think there are any mental health care professionals here today. If I'm wrong, please let me know. And none of us who are not mental health professionals can act as if we are. But there is something all of us can do when we meet someone who's experiencing a mental health issue. We can help by listening. Years ago, I took a course called Mental Health First Aid. My certification has lapsed some time ago, but a big part of mental health first aid is empathetic listening. And every single one of us can listen. To do empathetic listening well, though, takes some practice. We have to take ourselves out of the situation, and by that I mean to be fully present, listening to another person. to really pay attention to what they're saying. We have to let go of that natural urge to relate what they're telling us to something in our own lives. Another thing we can do as we listen is repeat back to them what they're saying, and that helps us make sure we understand what's been said. But it also helps them to hear what they're saying. When you repeat back to them what they have said, we need to do that in a way that's non-judgmental. And if we've gotten something wrong, we want to let them correct us. We can listen without offering solutions. That's really hard for us. We can ask open-ended questions, which means we can ask them what they think they can do next, or how they started to believe what they are telling you they believe. All of us can simply listen. I do want to tell you that if you ever think someone is at risk of harming themselves or someone else, that needs to be reported. It needs to be reported because none of us are mental health professionals. But you can get them help by calling 911 or calling 988. 988 is a crisis line for people experiencing mental health issues. But it's also a resource for those of us who care for people experiencing mental health issues. Mental health first aid would want us to get that person to help if they want that. And 988 can help us do that. Just listening to others is a way to care for those in need. Listening is how we love one another. Listening is one way to fulfill Jesus' command to love one another as he loved us. So as you go out into the world, know that as Christians, we are called to love people. To love people who experience the world much differently than we might. And know that you can love them because you can listen to them. Because now you know the basic resource is 988. So go love others. Go